It's 7 o'clock. Let's kick off. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you very much for coming. No members of the public here, so we don't need to consider them and ask them if they want to record anything. And I'm assuming that does anybody other than us want to record? No. Okay. Apologies for absence.
Yeah, I've received and circulated before the meeting apologies from Councillor Fernandez, whose dispensation has expired today, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Lyons, Councillor Ostron, Member Julia Brown, Member Rachel Hobley, and the clerk Jen McIntosh.
Items on the agenda to be discussed. Sorry?
We have to approve the absences.
Right, I assume.
Do we accept the apologies?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, well, that was taken as read. Items to be discussed in private session. I'm suggesting that we discuss the solar panels items, because it's commercially sensitive information. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Are you okay with that? Thank you. Written requests for new dispensations.
And none received.
None received. Any members and offices, personal and disposable pecuniary interests in items on the agenda? Any declarations?
Councillor Moses Cook has got a letter in here and he's my stepson.
Okay, thank you.
Can you remember what item?
It was to do with
Oh,
life
yes.
effect.
Right, yeah,
Right.
I'll find it.
I'd like to note that one of the quotes for solar panels comes from Environmental, and I know the owner personally, so just want that noted. Minutes of previous meetings. Anything in there that's not been covered elsewhere in the agenda?
I've got some updates.
Jenny?
I just really want to note that it didn't finish till 9:58, and I think that's a symptom of the fact that the agendas are too long, and that we should, and again it's very long tonight. So it's almost, I think we should have consideration about meeting more regularly, because I don't think we give proper consideration to things when they go on for quite so long.
So better to have more meetings, but
Yes.
shorter ones.
Yes.
I'm not sure how we deal with that one. Do we put it forward as a proposal to full council?
I guess so, yeah. I mean,
Not the first person.
the schedule has been sort of approved, tentatively approved, but they do get amended along the way. And we have put an extra one in for next year.
Okay.
So there are 5 in 24-25 rather than 4, which are like this year. So, and we haven't got this enormous gap that we've had this time.
It's been very long.
Because it was October the last time we met, and I know Christmas sort of gets in the way and takes out a month effectively, but in that case.
But there were a couple of the items that were discussed at the end that I just think got overlooked. You know, because they were dealt with so late on in the agenda.
I think
So do you want to make a proposal then that we put forward to full council a
Yes.
suggestion that we review the regularity and length
Yes.
of case meetings
Yes.
and content? All those in favour of that suggestion? Thank you. Alison?
I have one thing as well, which I think sort of goes with Jenny really, because the stone shelter proposal for a cedar roof in Homley got dismissed pretty darn quickly, and I would like to revisit that, but I'm not sure that you can, once it's been, I think the resolution has been passed.
If you, it's six months before you can reverse the decision. So you could, in theory, you wouldn't have been able to put it on this one if you wanted to, but you could put it on again. If that offer is still there, it may have gone that opportunity.
I was speaking to people from Holland Village Trust last week about that, and I suggested they consider putting it on the one in Oldfield, because I think it's constructed differently, might be easier to do.
Because the
It's
reason,
not quite the showpiece of the middle pond though.
Yeah.
So can we
But
make
yeah,
a
that
note
was my query on that, apropos what Jenny had said. We should go through.
that we can, to make a proposal that it's revisited
Yes.
at the appropriate time? Do we need to?
Time
We don't need to vote on that, though.
No, I haven't got it on there, actually. If you want to vote, that's fine.
So,
It's
but
usually better to.
that
We're just
would,
asking to review.
yeah. But it was the Holland Village Trust, it was their proposal, and they were going to contribute some money to it, and will they still want to do that in 6 months' time, or are you suggesting that it's something we might want to do as a council?
It might be interesting to do it, but it was an example of something that just galloped along. It came up, we didn't know anything about it. It was,
We can talk about it again in 6 months' time.
Okay.
but it's
It
like,
will go into the June meeting,
Yeah.
so we can revisit Sed and Roof at the June meeting.
June.
Did you say you've got some things that you wanted to?
There was a couple of updates that I had that are not included further down in the agenda. So from last time, there was an action for the Carlton team to request the notes from the Home Valley South Ward forums from Julia McDowell, and I got in touch with her and said that they don't publish any notes, so we can't have any, but she does encourage you all to attend and report back. And the other one was to approach social progress about possibly meeting our needs and support with training. Sorry, apologies for me, haven't really had the time, but I would like to talk to them more broadly about support for when we relaunch the brand and we relaunch the website, so a sort of a wider kind of package of support that might be that, which I'll be exploring it in the kind of next quarter, hopefully. So apologies for me, just one that didn't quite make it far from the to-do list.
Okay, well, thanks for the update. Yeah. So, nothing else from minutes of the last meeting that's not elsewhere on the agenda. So the next item is 232479, the engagement action plan. Well, there's an updated version of it. Do you want to speak to that, Jenna?
Yeah,
I've got a number of
notes,
comments
to
in
say.
the progress. And
So I've updated everything as far as I can with the kind of progress that we've made, and when I've had updates from working groups that I've not been involved in, I've included those and summaries of those as well. Councillor Green did some work after the last meeting to kind of draw together everybody's kind of top 3 on each side of things. So I've highlighted those in blue, and those are the things that I've been
That's item C.
prioritising.
Yeah, that came with the papers.
And that's it. So I've been sort of working on those blue highlighted ones where I can. I think there's some that we don't fully have updates on. There was the item about pursuing grant funding for the government's decarbonising scheme. I know Jen did some initial work on that to begin with, but we basically just missed the deadline last time, and it closed at the beginning of November, so we didn't get in there this time. It is expected to open again this year, but they haven't given us dates for it yet, so we'll just keep an eye on it.
Got that.
On that one. So updates, obviously there's quite a lot been going on in the sort of last year, because it was quite a long time. I think, so if we just focus for now, unless there's anything anybody else wants to sort of flag up. But website redesign and rebranding, I've got some notes on that later on. We've got an agenda item on that, so I'll talk you through what we've done so far and what the plan is going forward. Logo and QR code stickers, that needs to be done after if we're having a new logo, we can't do that until we've got a new logo, I think. That makes perfect sense. Review of collaboration, community engagement activities and audit and confirm community groups. So there's items later on this as well. So I will give you an overview at that point. And then on the next page, we've got, so possible funding schemes from the decarbonising scheme, I've mentioned that one already. Feasibility study and costing for the park and ride scheme. I know that the transport work group have done a little bit of work on that, but and we've had an update through. There is an agenda item for that as well. Solar panels, obviously, is here to discuss that today as well. And embedding the climate emergency, Councillor Green's asked for an item on the agenda for a discussion on that as well. So, what I would say is that we are about to hit the end of year one, so we need to kind of reorganise, reprioritise and get to grips with putting this as a plan for year two. It's musical chairs time in May, which is when committees move around if they want to. Quite often I think, I've actually been through that far more times than I have because I've only been through it once, but I think people do sometimes move around, but lots of people have got an interest in.
Often, yeah.
Yeah. So what we might find, whether it's worth doing a kind of reorganisation of the action plan and priorities before then, I'm not sure, because if we've got a different group of people in the room, they might have a different view on what the priorities are and what's going to happen next.
Thank you. My suggestion would be that we leave things as they are for the time being. We put an awful lot of work into trying to decide what the priorities are and things that we probably were not going to be able to achieve immediately, but it's all there for a 4-year period, and if we have a new group of people or not, then we can review when we reach that point. So my proposal would be that we leave things as they are for the time being.
And once we've ticked these things off, what are the next
Yes,
ones?
exactly.
But that might be a decision for a different group of people.
Is everybody happy with that, or anybody got an alternative view? Or? Okay. Thank you very much. So, the Communications Engagement Working Group, I think we've sort of covered that really in your discussion, although we have done some work on finding examples of good website design. We've got the flyer out. The next phase is to start work on a second flyer, but that's, you know, that's not imminent. We can work on that as we see fit, I think. We have the newsletter process, if you like. Do you want to say a bit about that, Gemma?
I'm going to leave it to the item on that. So the e-newsletter potentially.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've got a little bit to talk about on that, but I'm going to leave it for that item.
Thank you.
This is just for you guys' feedback, really.
Then there's the 232481 is the Climate Action Working Group. Do you want to say anything at this stage, Chris?
No, well, we came up with 5 priorities. The funding of improving the energy efficiency of this building has already been mentioned by Gemma. Park and ride's already been mentioned. Solar panels we're discussing later, and climate emergency is another. So there's nothing else.
Thank you. The next item is the Public Transport Working Group, who have not met recently, although they've got stuff in process. Is there anything you can say about that, Alison? Because you're on that group, aren't you?
Yeah, no, nothing much is happening at the moment. We obviously had a conversation with Carl Stott, and there's certain things offered, but we haven't actually committed to anything at the moment. But there are, you know, a few ideas.
Yeah. So what's the next stage, if you like, do you think?
I think the next stage is to have some sort of promotional overday, which is what Carl Stott was offering, to promote buses. And we're also considering making it clear what the routes were for the buses as well, that kind of promotional thing. We talked a bit about having a free Sunday or something like that.
Yeah.
But that hasn't got, you know, we haven't committed to anything. These are still the suggestions. And we realise that we can't ask the buses to run into the evening because the drivers aren't happy to do it. So that's a bit disappointing. I mean,
That's worth
a
knowing.
bit more persuasion, maybe, but that was part of the conversation that we had.
So is there a date or anything for a next working group meeting, or
No, we're waiting
so
for
you'll be
online.
report to us, to Case, when that happens.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we can send out the notes from the last working group meeting with the minutes of this meeting,
Okay.
Yeah. because they're, Joe circulated those and Lawrence has circulated them as well, so that, I think that's. Any questions about the transport working group? Okay, thank you. Biodiversity policy, Gemma.
So it's now a statutory requirement for all councils to have a biodiversity policy in place. That's a minimum requirement. It needs to come in as soon as possible, really. It was supposed to come in at the end of January, and we didn't find out about it until the 1st of February. So apparently pretty much all parish councils are a little bit behind on this. I've done a bit of digging about it. So as a minimum we need to put a policy in place. I've taken a model policy from this one's from SLCC, I think. There's a couple of things that I've highlighted in yellow. I think are things that we don't currently do or haven't currently done, but everything else that's in there I think we can sort of comfortably tick off. So our kind of options here are, do we want to go for the bare minimum, or do we want to think about this a little bit more? There are some councils out there, or parish councils and town councils, that have widened it to be an environmental policy, so it will include things like climate, and we don't currently have that, so it would be quite an interesting thing, I think, possibly to put forward. There are also, as a second stage for this, lots of parish and town councils that are looking at not just adopting a biodiversity policy, but an action plan along with it, so that includes it. So it might be something as simple as ceasing the use of plastic, for example, which is obviously something that we've taken steps on already. I wouldn't say we've done nothing on biodiversity. We've done bee gardens in the past, and we're currently running a campaign on Help Say. We're currently attempting to plant some trees as part of the COVID Memorial. So it's certainly that we're not doing anything at all. But where we kind of want to formalise that within our wider environmental work, do you want to go for, let's get this in as a bare minimum and then work on it, or do you want to not adopt this now and go away and think about what a wider environmental policy might be? Do you want to adopt a biodiversity policy and then work on an action plan? So these are your kind of options, really.
Can I make a comment that Kirklees have an action plan, don't they?
They will do, yeah.
And I watched the Zoom actually, and the scrutiny panel were looking at that, and I was thinking, I wonder why they're not the same.
The same as what?
The priority biodiversity thing that you brought up, and what Kirklees have. I mean, they're not different as in people are ignoring one thing and doing another. But why aren't the key points the same? Why aren't the words the same?
I mean, they have environmental officers that will have put those together. So this is a sort of very basic kind of model one that they put out there. But Kirklees, because they are landowners and land managers much more than we are, on a much bigger scale, they will have kind of taken all of that into account and got their environmental officers to write it for them.
Well, it was
Bespoke for them.
fine.
Yeah. Whereas this, I kind of borrowed from. I think it originated in Gloucester as well.
Can I make a proposal here that the next full council's on the 18th, and that we ask people, Case members and full council members, to actually have a look at your draft, and if they want to make any amendments or comments, they get them back to you by the 8th of March, which means that they could then be included in the papers, a paper for full council. And that at full council we're recommending that this is adopted with the amendments by full council in the first instance, and that we then go on to look at an action plan.
8th of March.
The 8th of March would be the deadline for comments on the draft,
So the end of this week.
so that it could go to full council on the 18th. Or is that too soon?
I won't have the minutes out by Friday.
No.
I don't think I'll have the minutes out by Friday.
If you just recommend that we adopt this at the next full meeting, and then decide if people want to review it.
You mean a full council?
Yeah.
Or the next
No, the next full we're being asked to recommend this to the next full council.
Yes, I know we are, but
So
if people want
let's-
to make amendments to it.
If we adopt it at this full council in 2 weeks' time, we've got a policy in place, which is a statutory requirement. If we then want to amend it going forward, we can do it at our
That's
leisure,
true.
can't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That
Is
covers
that
that.
what you want to do?
Kim?
I just think maybe, I don't know, John might not have the minutes complete by Friday, but could we see the draft Gloucestershire
It's in the papers, that's.
in here?
Yeah.
Can we still comment before then, or is it too?
I mean, what I'm asking now, what we're sort of asking now for the resolution is, does it go as it is, or are there any amendments that need to happen before it goes to council? So if you can get amendments to me by Friday, then
Thank you.
we have that. But you haven't agreed those amendments as a group, that's a problem.
Oh, right, okay, it's too late then.
It doesn't necessarily, the legislation is that it needs to go, it needs to be adopted as soon as it's practicable. So if we think that getting it in front of full council in 2 weeks, fully formed and
Chris's
happy.
proposal is that we send it as is, and then we've got it in place, and then we can amend it in the fullness of time and do an action plan and work on it. But we've actually got something in place that's been hopefully adopted by full council. So that's the proposal, we send it as is.
I'm gonna say that I would send it without the bits I've highlighted.
What just say that? You mean
Because
take
we're
them
not,
out?
we're not currently doing those things, yeah.
So take them out,
Yeah,
fine.
okay, let's
But with, perhaps with a note that goes with it, with the proposal to say that we recognise that there are things that need to be added and amended, and it will need an action plan if it's going to mean anything on the ground.
There are a few things.
I misunderstood that. I thought carrying out the plan of the store was going to be a statutory requirement, but you're saying it's
No,
not.
that's what we're saying is our policy. I've adapted this from an existing policy. From what I can see, the two things that are in yellow are the things we are not currently doing off the model.
And the link to the plant protection products is interesting, because that's herbicides, pesticides, weeds.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That bit in.
Yes,
So I'm not happy with that bit, but I think this is right, I think,
get it in there,
get it in
and
there.
then it's a,
Plant protection.
it's our
Oh,
policy.
God.
So then it's our policy, and we have to work out how to do it.
We've got, have we not got a we have got a biodiversity audit, haven't we, of the cliff path? Because that came with the report that we got.
Land charities.
What's it called, EPIC or something, no, not EPIC, whatever it's called. That guy who came and, because he did an audit of the biodiversity of the cliff path, didn't he?
Yes, well, they did at Woolstone in Kingston.
And Moonstones, yeah.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
but that's a land
it's-
charity,
Oh,
not
It's not a charity, so.
But that's where our land holdings are, isn't it?
I don't know.
This building, is this building the library, toilets, that's what we've got.
There's
That's what the parish
there's a
council
graveyard
owns.
as well, isn't there?
There's a graveyard.
There's a
isn't
graveyard and
I mean,
allotments
there? I
where.
can't imagine that
We
this
don't
building.
own the graveyard though, we just own maintain it. Do we own it, Richard?
No.
Sorry,
No.
I'm saying
No,
again.
the church owns it.
So you consent?
So we are resolved to recommend this model policy as our
In the
own
first
policy
instance.
with the amendments of taking out the bits that we know we're not doing.
Yeah. And with the caveat that this is the first stage, and subject to amendments and action planning in the fullness of time,
Yes.
or words to that effect.
I think that's quite crucial, that we,
It is
you know, this
absolutely
is really
crucial.
important to us, isn't it? And
Yes.
it's in our statement of intent that we are, you know, it's a priority for grant funding to be included. So I don't think we should skip skip over it too quickly, you know, the action plan is what matters, much more than getting the
That's
policy
what we
in
put
place.
in there.
Yes, so I just want to stress that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually think that we would do well, given that this is a climate committee,
Yes.
climate action, that it should be expanded into environment, because we don't actually have any policies anywhere that says that we should be making green decisions.
The English is a statement of intent though. that
It
was
is,
passed by
but
full
there's no
council.
policy on kind of the rules.
And the rules say there has to be a written policy.
Yeah, I mean, a statement of intent is what you like to do.
Oh, I see.
Policy is what you
Okay.
have to do, what you told
Okay.
yourselves that you have to do.
But we have agreed that all our committees and all our actions will be related to, so that's policy in action.
It is in a respect, yeah.
But you're saying that there isn't anything formal that
No.
sits as a,
If you think about that, we've got lots of communication policy type stuff now that we've all been through and we've looked through, and we've got policy on behaviour, council behaviour, clerk's behaviour. We've got policies on what we can and can't do on a lot of things. We haven't got any policies on environment.
So should we have a joint policy on environment and biodiversity?
That might be something that you want to do once you've got to kind of pass the first hurdle to be compliant. It might be something that you want to review as to whether it's and there's some.
can we add that into the notes then?
Yeah.
It says that that's one of the things that we'll be looking at, is
Yeah.
the inclusion of environmental policy.
My only point in relation to that is kind of what Councillor Morgan mentioned earlier. Apart from our buildings, everything else falls under Kirklees. So if they've got a policy for managing the environment in the Home Valley, why do we need one as well?
It might just be a one-line statement, mightn't it? I think it's about flag waving, isn't it, as much as anything, and saying it's part of. And anyway, if we do own one piece, well,
You have at least considered it.
do you want to just read out what you've got there, Benjamin?
I mean, I'll take most of it from the video, if I'm honest.
Yeah, sure.
But at the moment, we're looking at recommending with amendments to full council's current version of the policy, with a view to amending in the future with a possible widening to be an environmental policy, and following and then action planning will be following on from that once that's established.
Okay, are we all content with that? Yep, thank you. 232484, impending climate emergency in the parish council decision making. Chris?
Well, we've just discussed that, and I think this policy would be a major part, or certainly a big first step of that, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I've spoke to Green colleagues about this. Their initial recommendation is that staff, possibly councillors, look at doing carbon counting training, which I don't know anything about, but that's what I've been recommended. So
The carbon counting
training, so that we're aware of. So how are you aware of how our decisions impact the climate if we haven't had some training on it?
You go to the World Wildlife Fund's website, there's an e-learning section on that one there, and you can actually do free source from that one there, so it might be worth sharing that link. I'll try and find out free source and send it through, where you can actually assess your own carbon and how many tons you use and what affects which elements of it. So I'll try and find that out and forward it to the committee.
Thank you.
There are lots of carbon calculators out there. I recently came across a really interesting one, which I will circulate, which I think a couple of you have shown it to. It's a community carbon calculator, and they've taken the most recent census data, and it is phenomenally clever, and worked out carbon footprints by parish. So we can get our own one. I've got a copy of it in the office if anybody's interested before you go. So I will circulate that as
Yes,
well, and I
please.
think that's really useful as a baseline to see where we compare with other places and other parishes that have got other green initiatives going on as well, and maybe where we think we might be able to shift some of where we're high, we might be able to shift some of that as well.
So two things then, to circulate the information that you've got, yeah? And Councillor Brooke will share
Yeah.
the link so that people can, with the recommendation that people do their own investigation, if you like.
Yeah, educate yourselves as to what was causes the most carbon loss in your own lifestyle, or the most carbon input in your own lifestyle.
Thank you.
And would that translate to the decisions that the council makes? So if we're making a decision on transport policy in Scots coaches, can we feed the information in and it'll say, well, if you make this decision, it's going to have this impact, and
Sadly
if you,
not.
that's what we
That's
kind of
exactly
do. That's what we need, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it just takes census data, so that will be things like the age of people, how much they're commuting, where they work, their sort of employment details. I think some census data includes things like holiday information and that sort of thing, and then turns that into kind of averages for each area, and they've done it by district and by parish.
I think it's highly likely that there's I don't know whether you do or know, every Wednesday there is a big collaboration workshop banter chat that's run by the National Association of Local Councils in order to help parish and town councils share ideas about all sorts of things, but a lot of them are to do with climate action, climate emergency, community engagement. They're absolutely rooted in what we're about. So I'll undertake to do some asking there about how one actually goes about measuring your actions against.
Yeah, I mean, it may be fantasy, but I'd like to be in a situation where we're discussing a policy in the same way that Rich sticks his hand up and says, you can't do that because financially you've got to get that account from this account.
Yeah.
That Gemma or whoever else sticks their hand up and say, well, if you do realise if you're doing it that, it's going to have this negative impact, whereas if we do it the other way, it will be more beneficial.
Maybe they're always
I don't know how we get there, but
but that's what I'm thinking of
Yeah,
best
yeah,
advice
yeah, yeah.
on.
I would say it's probably less quantifiable. I know we'd really like to
Yeah,
measure it,
yeah.
but a lot of sustainability action is on theory of change. So we know that if everybody did X, then Y would be less. But we can't necessarily, there are so many variables that you can't actually quantify.
No,
There are some people that are very clever and do basic quantifiers, so they will be able to tell you
It's
that this
the best
action
bit
will
though,
give
isn't
you
it?
this much carbon savings.
It would be another step forward for us, though,
Yeah,
wouldn't
it would. So that would be, and there are, I think, have we had a carbon audit at some point? I've come across a couple of things that reference it, but I've not seen it.
Well, not by us.
Right,
The trust have done it. Yeah.
right. Oh, the Civic Trust have done it. Oh, okay. So,
On this building, I mean.
so we've got that. I mean, that is potentially an option of something as well, if you wanted to go down the sort of quantifiable, measurable side.
I think it's a case of doing it's the art of the possible, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and I think Honley Library and the Civic, you were on board then, weren't you? I think they both had reports done of their energy use in general and carbon usage. So there are, in our files, there will be reports somewhere. Yeah.
Anything else on that? No?
No.
Thank you very much, Chris. Okay, we're on to the installation of solar panels. Assistant Clerk report.
Yes, I think we agreed that this section would be in private session,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
So, I don't know where we've got to. Solar panels on private.
86,
earmarked reserve.
Earmarked reserves. Deputy Clerk to report. So, yeah,
Similar.
and similar. Anything more that you want to say on other than what we've
I
got
don't
for
know,
this information?
Is there, sorry Gemma, is there an agenda item about the public, about the pubs and comms side of things as well?
There is, yeah. I think we put this one in because we are nearing the end of the financial year, and as you were just saying,
Yeah.
any underspend on budget lines, we need to kind of make decisions on what we are asking the council to do with it. I don't think that we've got any other outstanding spends coming up before the end of March, other than maybe the deposit for the solar panels.
Yeah.
I think we've already paid anything, or we know about anything in terms of pubs and comms,
We paid the
external.
invoices for.
So we paid the invoice for that, and I've managed to put it in here to approve, so sorry about that, we can
No,
ignore
it's
that.
okay.
But yeah, that's been sort of sorted. I think the regular payments that we have for the publications like Tyto and Paid Edge and that sort of stuff, that's all accounted for. And we don't have any intention to spend any further printing, or do we, between now and the end of March?
Yeah.
So that's all of that. We don't, anything to do with any sort of future events or spending on that side will come in the new financial year. So anything that is now left on the projected report needs sort of tidying up and putting somewhere, probably in
Okay,
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You've got all these pots of money, all the kind of special projects, civic events pot. Lots of it was unspent in the publications and communications side of things. I suppose it just needs to be for real things. Just salting it away just looks a bit iffy to council, given that we've spent ages trying to sort out how much general reserves we've got and trying to balance stuff out. So just be cautious that it's got to be we'll be carrying it over for real things.
yeah.
It's
And
not
I
less.
think the argument we make is that we've done an awful lot of planning and preparation, and it takes time to get information together and decide what you want to do, and you can't spend things in 5 minutes sometimes.
And we've got earmarked reserves on the COVID memorial, and we've got a report on that, and we're still unclear, we're waiting for quotations for things, but we are likely to be spending that, but not necessarily before the end of March.
Yeah, that doesn't
EMRs
matter.
is-
EMRs just roll over, and
Right,
it's
okay,
just
that's
the budget is the problem. You've got a couple of lines with £1,000 in that would just disappear if you didn't come to an agreement about an earmark reserve for it.
There was the ones that were related to the topograph were over there. Does it not just cancel each other out if they?
I don't think that was your issue. That's council.
No, but
That's,
I think it's sort of in a wider budget respect. Is that not? I mean,
as I said to the other day, Gemma, it didn't really. It just ended because it was in pubs and comms budget lines when it was first, when it was first set up. I just moved it back there. But it's kind of the decision was taken by council. So the fact that it's 4,000 over budget, it's hardly this committee's issue.
Well, yeah. Maybe made that
That's
decision.
council's
Money that was
issue.
already spent.
So when I've been doing my figures about what this committee's got, it doesn't include that minus 4,000 or whatever it is.
So I think we've sort of already decided that we want to put the climate money into potential solar EMR, but it will just be called climate action projects or whatever it is for next year. So we think there's how much on the sort of communication side that is underspent, and is that to go into the website and associated brand relaunch?
You've got 3,000 and change. You've got a few things, haven't you, that didn't get done, like banners and are those things you want?
Yeah, so
Well,
the
the
things like
banners,
the
the
slogans
plaques.
banners and post rebrand will, just general collateral.
And it's because they're all connected, you know, the
Mm.
website,
Yeah, well,
the banners, the
well,
logo.
why don't you roll anything that's unspent into a, you know, like a whatever,
Communications.
you know, communications and engagement earmark
I think is what
reserve.
we
So
talked
just
about, yeah.
just ask to do that, and seems sensible.
Is everybody happy with that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody all right with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, COVID Memorial Working Group is the next item, I think. Oh, no, it's not. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I've got a note from Mary, which I'll just read out, shall I? Because I've been off work since I drafted document F, progress is stalled and there is very little to report. However, Riverhome Connections have agreed to help. See text of email from River Steward below. I'm about to start work on the content of the simple contract, and that email says, sorry for the delay in getting back to you. We're really keen to help and get involved in this project. The trustees would like a simple contract for the work to just ensure that Riverhome Connections won't have any future liability for the auction, and it would be good to agree how long you would like us to carry out maintenance work on the trees for. Hope this is still okay with you. So that's the update. Okay.
Is there any actions that anybody needs that's involved in there?
No, I don't think so, because it's
It's just an
for
update.
Mary to progress the
Yes, the
contract.
working group, we're meeting again this Friday, I think,
Okay.
and it seemed a very simple thing when we started, and to say it's got more complicated by the minute, phew, it's because we're going in two places, and the Sands and Honley Library, and the Honley Library plan has changed 3 times now, I think, and each time, so one of us will come up with another idea, and then we realise the complications of this. And so it's all sort of snowballed a bit in terms of how elaborate it's going to be. But the Honley Library site is going to be lovely when we've done it, and the Sands one, it appears now, I think, to be pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Next one is the Business and Community Group database. Gemma.
So I'll sort of talk you through where I'm up to and what the plan is. Database is pretty much, the clean-up's done. The next thing I need to do is go through all of the entries. I think we've got about 800 email addresses on it. I need to go through those entries and divide them up so that we can be GDPR compliant. So that will be, there are personal email addresses on there. There are corporate email addresses that are kind of admin at, or hello at, and then there are identifiable people at or about an organisation. Now, for those corporate email addresses, we can send them as much stuff as we want anytime. The other 2 groups are quite highly regulated, so if you can identify, say it is Jeff Smith at company.com, so we know that that's an identifiable person, even though that is their company email address. We can't just sort of chuck that out there willy-nilly. So what we talked about with the working group is a kind of proposal where we kind of use those corporate addresses as a bit of a trial, because we know we can go out to them. And then we roll out to the identifiable people where we only go once. So we need to give the corporate email addresses a kind of unsubscribe option, but we are allowed to go out to them. For the other groups, they have to be opt-in, so we kind of put information out there, and then please come and sign up to our email database. What we propose doing to start with, and learning the lessons from, we do send out sort of information to groups on a slightly ad hoc basis about grants and about events, and we put stuff up on Facebook and on the website, but we've not had an email newsletter before, so we'd quite like to do a monthly one, I think, to begin with, and most organisations of any sort of size have just got this is what we've been up to, these are the events that are going on, we could maybe use it to promote other things in the same way we use the Facebook page, so that might be free events that have got community value to them and all of that sort of thing. And then we can also, if we're doing that, we can then create a sign up to our newsletter option on our new website, quite cool. So that we're not just hitting businesses and organisations, but we can actually have individuals come and sign up. And if they've signed up, then we can send them stuff until they tell us not to. So that's kind of where we propose to start with. I think in terms of content, it's not going to be a massive leap from where we're at now. So it's once the structure is in place and we've got the mechanisms for it, actually we're putting out content all the time on Facebook. We're putting out content in printed media anyway. So what we put out monthly in Tyto is a story every month. So it's not going to be a huge piece to increase the amount of content that we put out, because actually we're just reusing what we've got in a different way and sending it out to different audiences. So that's kind of where I'm up to with it. So just wanted to put that out there, let you know what's happening, but also, you know, is everybody okay with that as a kind of going forward idea? It's basically a new platform that we're putting out as communication. Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And just to say, the working group has got a meeting on the 23rd of April
Right.
to see where we're up to. Yeah.
Okay.
3 or 4 of us there, I think so. And anybody else who wants to join in with that, you're more than welcome. So the next one, Alison, is the request occurred please to cease its use of glyphosate.
Well, I sent you the responses that I've got from 3 councillors. Actually, haven't had a response from Paul Davies, but you can see that Councillor Reeves just explained the situation as it is now, and we didn't really take it much further. He attached one of the business support officers' responses to glyphosate. Councillor Crook, what I did was actually write to Hammersmith and Fulham Council, who ban glyphosate, and Doncaster Council, but I didn't get any response at all. So Councillor Crook said he would talk to Doncaster personally, because he felt it was easier councillor to councillor than for me to do it. But there hasn't been any action on that since. I think, which is the next step, I think is to ask again, because the reason I was listening to the scrutiny panel on climate action in Kirklees is because they're going to launch their new strategy after the May elections, and they've got 3 always-on priorities. They're actually saying things they should be doing, and I think not using herbicides is one of them, pesticides and herbicides. So my thought is to have another go, because and actually point them to their own policy and see if it makes a difference.
So is your proposal then that we write to them again with a letter that points out in no uncertain
I
terms?
think I'd like to link it to what the notes I made on their own policy and see whether that makes a difference. Because,
So is that an action you're prepared to undertake?
it is.
Thank you very much. Is everybody okay with Alison progressing that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So the next one is the review of external communication, establishing a communications and engagement strategy. We did have one, didn't we, Gemma, because it's woefully out of date.
It's not really a,
It's not really worth,
it's
it's not really worth talking about.
I think it needs.
So I said that I would do some investigation here, and I contacted the National Association for Local Councils, who you would imagine probably had, well they don't. So there you go. So I'm back to, let's see if we can find one from somewhere else and draft our own then, because I'm sure there are governmental organisations that most certainly do have, and certainly the Department for Education have one. So I'm on with that as the answer. Okie doke.
Can I just
Yes.
add something?
Of course.
When we went to the green drinks thing earlier on, someone was talking about Denby Dale Council looking to Home Valley Parish Council for the lead of this kind of communication type thing, because they think that this council is very good at it.
Hurrah!
Make something
How
back.
many points for us?
And that's without a strategy.
Small steps. All things are relative, of course.
Exactly.
Yes.
Can I jump in on that point then? Because they've got an environment officer as part of their council, and potentially there might be some cross-working that I can pick up with them.
That
If we're
sounds-
policy and they've got an environment lead, then what can we learn from each other potentially?
Sounds excellent.
If I can ever find the time.
Yes,
But yeah, I
yes,
think-
well, we're coming on to that in a
I
minute.
think
haven't we? Time, time.
parishes.
Climate Action website and contact. Emma.
Sorry, just writing, scribbling down, don't forget. Okay, lovely. So website. This is going to take over my life for the next 6 months, I think. So with that in mind, I'll think about some of the other bits and bobs that are on my workload. I've put into your packs a kind of proposed methodology for going forward, rough timeline. I'll be essentially leading the work, but there'll be bits that I've identified that I think councillor input will be really valuable for. And that is things like brand identity, content, images. My first step, I think, what I'd like to get out this month is a bit of a survey to all councillors, not just this committee, but I think it's important that everybody gets a little bit buy-in about what we've got now, how they feel about it, what we'd like to achieve. And that can be in terms of content, in terms of look and feel. Do we want to be more modern? Do we want to really hang on to that heritage side of the brand? How does the website navigate? Spoiler, we don't really love it at the moment, and I don't think anybody does. And how might be better? Some of you have already sent me lots of I like this website stuff, which is really brilliant. Anybody is welcome to do that, and I will sort of work to coordinate pulling that together and really pulling out those elements that we think are great. And so I think there's sort of the top line survey, all councillors give us a little bit of feedback on what we've got now and where we'd like to get to. And then that communications engagement working group will work a little bit more on gathering examples of great practice and then eventually further down the line helping with sourcing images, helping with writing a bit of content, helping me to put together a layout that kind of works in the most intuitive way. Initially, I'm thinking that the easy way forward is to look at those suppliers that have got sort of template parish websites. There are sort of niche providers out there, to see if one of them can give us what we're looking for. If not, then go bespoke, but obviously that takes longer and it's more expensive. But if we can get something that's off the shelf a bit more, that is going to work initially, then that would be probably the best way to go. So what I'm looking at really is that kind of this next quarter, March to June, is to scope out a brief with everybody's input, and then identify options for suppliers, and then June to sometime, hopefully the autumn, is to build, transfer our content and write, and upload images and all that sort of stuff. So So if everybody feels that that's kind of achievable, that's where I'm headed. It's not going to happen next week, I'm sorry.
I think one of the points I would like to make, not just about this work, but about generally the work of not just this committee, is that we clearly cannot achieve our objectives if we have very few people inputting. We need people to actually do work, not just say, you know, that's a nice idea, that's a nice idea, off you go, somebody, and do it. We need to grow that number of people, and I suspect it needs to come from outside the case committee as well. But I also think that we need to utilise external expertise more smartly, shall we say, because there are lots of individuals and community groups who can help us move things forward. And I think we have to work smart with community groups in order to achieve a number of things that we want to do. And I think this is probably an example of where the broader council can actually really make an input here. And it is for all of us. It's not just, you know, it's not just the case committee baby. This is for the whole of the council to say this is what we do. So for everybody to at least have said, well, I've had a look at that and I like that, or I've got some ideas here, or I'll collect some photos or whatever. I think we should do a push on the whole council being involved in this. Now, how far we get with that is another matter, but I think we should ask.
Certainly that initial phase I'll make that as easy as I can and stick a survey under people's nose, and then, you know, hopefully we will get good response from that. With regards to the kind of later stages, particularly on content and images and that sort of thing, I think there's a massive network out there, and that as councillors you could really add value to the website.
Yeah.
And you know, I'd love to see it. I'll be there banging the drum on it for council meetings, don't you worry. On that when I need some input. But yeah, there is certainly on this. I think there's so much huge range of knowledge and perspectives, and it can't just be what I think looks nice and sounds nice, because it's not just me.
No, that's great. Thank you very much indeed. Any questions for Gemma? Okay, thank you very much.
So you're all okay with the work plan that I've kind of put together?
Yep.
Obviously things might shift because we don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months, but that's kind of roughly what I'm working to.
And I really like your statement of objectives and where we're trying to get to as well. I think that does give.
Yeah, and I'll continue to add to that as I'm getting feedback from councillors more widely, and definitely these are just sort of the thoughts of the initial kind of clerks chat that we had, and also the few people that came to the working group, and Julie has been in and spent some time with me as well, and been really, really helpful just about navigation and layouts and that sort of thing. That's really helped to solidify what we're after in my head.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And thank you for all the work that you've done on this so far, because there's been a load of work.
It is.
Up to this point.
I am aware that this is my life now.
Yeah, taking over. Yeah. So the next one is publicising the work of the parish council. Councillors are invited to share any feedback they've received from the community, particularly about the flyer that we did, and well, actually anything else in printed media form, or yes, publications. A number of people I have spoken to have said how much they like the flyer and that they think it's a really good idea. On which point, if you are going to a meeting with a community group or to the doctors or dentists, for goodness sake, take a bunch of them with you. And because this is an ongoing leafleting endeavour, you know, they're not time limited, and I think the more we repeat giving them out, actually, the better. So I took some to Elmwood, to Oaklands, to Dentist. I keep taking them to the tech and replenishing their supply, etc., etc. So I think it is, if you are part of a community group like the WI or Soul Choir or wherever, take some and hand them out, because it gets the word out, doesn't it? So that's my 2 penny.
How the stock's going? We've still got loads.
Yeah, we did another print run, so we've got loads. Yeah.
Great.
Any other snippets?
Mine have been well received, I have to say. I've given them out to Quaker Meeting House, and I spoke about it, and everybody took them, and there's lots of people who are Quakers are also into lots of other voluntary groups and things, and they've gone on. The Waldale Community Centre, the dance woman Holly Lightfoot, she was filling in a form excitedly for a grant application, I think, and sent me a thank you to say, yes, I'm filling in this grant application as we speak. So she was pleased that ability options that people have got an annex around the back of Waldale Community there for adults with additional special needs. They were very keen to get hold of a few. So we'll give me a few more, she went. So I did. I have to say I've been quite taken aback at the enthusiasm with which they have been received, and I suspect it's because people are thinking in terms of the grant applications. But
That's nice, isn't it?
yes,
But also, I mean, a lot of people didn't honestly know what the parish council did.
no,
So they go, oh, it's good to have this explained, you know.
yes,
People who thought they knew got it completely wrong, you know. So it's I think people have found it very.
well, we didn't know what the
Enlightening.
parish council did exactly, did we, before we joined. So, yes, let's not be sniffy about it.
I knew that. I was saying, that was why I needed it.
Yes,
Thank you.
yeah.
In a moment of madness, I said that I would do a video.
Yes, we
No,
heard you say that.
I've done a trial, so I don't know whether I like it very much. I didn't like the fact when I was sitting in my bedroom doing it, so I didn't think that was appropriate. But so I will do that, and literally to say, basically, hi folks, I'm just introducing part of our. I don't really want to use community engagement. It's a bit strapline, isn't it? There's some way of saying it. I'm mulling over words that make it appropriate to say, we're here to tell you what's going on. I'm coming to tell you what's going on with the parish council. And you'll have seen our leaflets, and there will be more of them. And just very short and to the point,
Well
really.
done. You're not doing a dance,
Okay. Anyway, Assistant Clerk's report further on publishers.
Yes,
Anything?
I think you've pretty much covered everything on there. Unfortunately, our Haid Edgebury Spring edition didn't make it into Haid Edgebury Spring. They didn't receive it. I don't know what happened, but yeah, unfortunately, it didn't make it in, which is a bit of a shame. The bit about considering approval of the spends, that's my fault, shouldn't have put that in, that's all that's dealt with, so you can ignore that from, I just forgot to take it out again, so you can ignore that in your agenda, and if there's anything else on those, if not, we're moving on.
So the bit about the approval of expenditure enough. So
Yeah,
that's
very
okay.
sort
Yep,
of it, I
lovely.
just forgot to take it back out.
Social media and website coverage.
Yes, that was interesting.
Yeah, so your usual kind of Facebook engagement analytics is included in there. We have just pressed go on Google Analytics for our website, which I have not delved into yet because it's only been in the last few days. But next time I'll be able to give you website engagement stats as well at the same time. For Facebook, we've been hovering around a similar level of engagement as last time. However, I did go on a webinar last week that had some really interesting bits of information about optimising the algorithms on that. So I'm going to try a few of those things out, see if it makes any difference. It was mostly about trying to drive traffic from social media into your website and vice versa to keep that switch going.
How to make people look at things.
How to make people look at things, but how to make them appear as well. And what is
Yeah.
really interesting is that Facebook's main kind of motivation is to keep you on Facebook. So if you post text in a post with a link in it, which takes them off Facebook, it is less likely to show people.
Really?
So you need to put your links in your comments,
Yes.
which I had no idea about. But isn't that clever?
Yes.
So it's a really simple thing, and I will be doing it in future, and see if the hit rate goes up.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's nice. Wow.
It was
Yeah.
worth it. It was worth it.
See,
The rest of the
it was
webinar
worth
as well.
So, Gemma, what's the analytics then on who, you know, on the sex and age of things on Facebook? Have you got that?
So it was included in the report.
Oh, right.
Yeah. We are
Okay.
very heavily female.
Yeah. Do you know what? My website, my Facebook stuff at work is, and I wonder if it's because I'm female and middle-aged.
Yeah, it's fairly middle-aged.
I kind of heard anecdotally that is
It's just what
the
That's
general
what Facebook
Facebook
is,
user
yeah.
profile these days.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are works looking at then?
I couldn't tell. Couldn't possibly comment.
Just one social media generation.
I've seen your TikTok
No, I
videos.
haven't.
I'm joking.
Well, seriously, I use Twitter and Instagram. I look at them.
Instagram, yeah, it's the way to go. Okay, lovely, thank you. Right. Where, awards. Now, I circulated a request for folks to put down their 2 penneth about what they thought about community awards and criteria. We've had some, I've had some comments back. Jenny, do you want to say a bit about what you were suggesting?
Okay.
Or do you want me to say?
Well, no, I'm happy to say it, but I'm not saying I've really thought this through in detail, but I'm very aware that it became extremely controversial. You know, the idea of giving specific awards and what criteria we would use. And this goes back a long way of people not being able to come up with clear criteria of who we wanted to award. And it certainly seemed to me, I was really quite excited when we had lots of nominations, because I thought that's great, that means we've got a community, a lot of people who are very active in our community, who it would be really nice to express thanks to. But I do have doubts about the actual giving of awards and it being competitive as to who gets them. But I do think if we thank people for their contributions to our community, it motivates them. It's an expression of appreciation, and they will continue to work on behalf. So I'm almost thinking, well, forget the idea of awards, but just invite them to a party, in inverted commas, where there could be some speeches and expressions of thanks and recognition of what everybody's been doing. And
Collectively rather than individually.
you know, that we come together and, you know, you can, by all means, I don't think it should be expensive. I don't think we need trophies. I don't think we need framed certificates. I think if you want, we can give out, well, a suggestion, you can just give out a printed certificate and say why we're thanking them. And just bring everybody together so that there would be some shared upbringing, you know, the diversity of bringing people together, an opportunity to network, and an opportunity to just be aware of how much community action there is.
Thank you. Matt?
Sorry. I was just going to say I really like that idea. I can't remember if it was the Honley Business or the Honley Village Trust organised something. It was basically we went to the cricket pavilion for a thank you for the volunteers of Honley kind of evening.
Yeah.
So there were no awards given out, but we were all asked to give a little 90-second video kind of presentation on what we actually did, and it was really a good engagement event. And they got Jason McCartney and going around with pork pies on a tray with the grill.
I certainly think we should have some food and stuff.
Yeah.
Make it and, you know, a
But yeah.
really nice community event.
I think that's a really good idea.
Thank you. My personal view, for what it's worth, is that you need to decide what you want to achieve. What's the purpose of doing it? And for me, it is about exactly what you've described. It's saying there are all these people out there, and I do not buy into the idea that it's only people who do things voluntarily, because that's a very particular group who've got plenty of time to do things voluntarily. And you can build in things in your work which are equally valuable. So I think it's it needs to be all comers, business, voluntary groups, community, you name it. But I think the point of it is to say thank you for all that you do in all those different ways. So I very much like the idea that you suggested, I have to say. And rather than having, a this award, a that award, and another award, because it can be quite difficult, I think, to say, oh, well, here's an award for, I don't know, being the greenest business. Well, how do you decide on that? And aren't loads of people doing things? And on all of that, it becomes incredibly difficult when you start looking at criteria. And then if you go down the road of criterion referencing, and we know the blooming nightmare that is, it's like, well, who do you say is better than other, and all of that. So it also gets you out of a bit of a mire in terms of decisions about who's better than somebody else, when actually the truth of it is people are different and are doing different things and achieving things in lots of different ways, would be my view. Alison?
I'm just going to say, how would you gather the suggestions then? Have you had to think about that? With this, because I think all through our prizes, I think it's just that bringing everyone together is really nice. Would there have to be a formal way of getting people to make the suggestions? Or could we do something even a bit more casual about that as well?
I think we could probably do it in the way that we've done previously, saying, but describe what it is that we've just outlined. Who would you like to invite and why? And leave it to people to say.
What counts as us or the general public?
I would do it public.
Mm-hmm.
And I might, and I've only just thought about this, but hey, I might take councillors out of it and say it's a community thing. So it's not for councillors, it's for about the wider public to say who are the community activists or whatever, rather than us.
Yeah, no, I could go with that.
There was a suggestion from me that those people who were interested in looking at the criteria or drawing up what it was that we're going to do would meet on either the 5th or the 11th. And Chris and Gemma and I were available then to do that. So I don't know whether anybody else wants to join in with it, whichever day the three of us decide, and time, and move forward on the basis of the discussion that we've had.
I'm just trying to think of linking into the common side of things as well, and just harvesting people's positive, good news stories. There's loads of scope for content there, isn't it? And
I mean, it's always the sort of good news story of the council. Before I came on, that was the awards were
from the community rather. I don't like this top-down hierarchical. Oh, little person, we think that we the parish council deem you worthy of an award. I can't stand that idea. I think harvesting good news stories in words of anyone, whether they be young or any criteria, to say thanks and celebrate something within our community would be really interesting to cast.
I think the trick will be to how we publicise that that's what we're looking for, and we can't just use social media. But maybe that's part of the process.
So you have a proposal way forward. Is it to meet and put the proposal to council?
Yeah. draw up the proposal for full council. Has anybody else got anything they want to add to that? Or an alternative viewpoint or suggestion or?
Just gathering people together in situations like that, whether it's a celebration or it's very useful for the groups and the individuals involved as well, because it's kind of networking, and it's always really good to get fresh news from. So it would be nice if we could accommodate quite a few people, and it's not necessarily competitive, but more celebratory and sharing. And so you're looking at the outcomes of it more than the criteria, so judging it, so to speak.
Yeah.
Can I ask how people feel though about, are we actually been saying this, that we're almost abolishing the awards? And no, I'd be interested in knowing what the people,
Yeah, I
how
think
people
that's
feel
exactly what
about
I'm
something
saying.
that's so well
Yeah.
established.
Could you not get the attendees or to vote for their favourite thing? It doesn't have to, yeah, do you know what I mean? Rather than it being judged by the parish council, that let the community read this some nice case studies and let them vote for their favourite rather than it being kind of. Because then you've
I
got
don't
that.
think that's necessary, but I think it could be. But I mean, I don't know, I'm just wondering how full council would feel about the awards that have been so much part of the council for so long.
Well, I think that's for us, I think that's for us to argue.
Okay, right, if we think it's a good idea,
Yeah.
we push it forward. Yeah, okay, yeah.
If indeed we do.
Yeah.
So the proposal is that we will have a group of us, anybody who wants to join on either the 5th or the 11th, and we will draw up a proposal for full council on the basis of the discussion that we've just had, which is a community recognition event. A drawing together and people being encouraged to suggest people or organisations from the community and not from councillors.
Yeah.
So it's a community-led event,
Yeah.
which we are facilitating. That sound all right?
Given that one of those dates is tomorrow.
Damien?
Interestingly, we get together there, and it's, it comes with this one now, but almost having perhaps some of these groups having their own little stalls, because often they run cake days and coffee mornings, don't they? So potentially could these groups be there to showcase themselves to the public that come?
Yeah.
So they could be invited to, as for recognition, thanks for coming, you've been great, please bring your show with you, and then we can all discuss your show, and then you get publicity, we get it, and you get recognition of your what you're doing there. So
Good idea.
potentially that way.
Bring some leaflets about your organisation, you know, have 2 minutes to talk about it, or whatever the sort of thing that you were just describing.
So there could be like a menu or a choice of things that you can do. So somebody might want to put on a video, say like you did, or somebody else might want to bring along some of whatever it is they to show us what they've been up to. That woman who knitted the teddies, for example.
So it could, rather than being 2 hours on a Friday night or whatever, you make it a longer event and things going on during the day, and there's all sorts of possibilities, aren't there? But we'll start with we are approaching 9 o'clock, so the question is, can we continue? We've got we've only got one more.
They might be related. So yeah, you'll need to just approve time.
Pardon?
You'll just need to approve time.
Hands up, is that all right?
Thank you.
Okay. So, the community event in the summer. Do you want to report
I've
on
got
this
some
then,
thoughts.
Jenny?
Yeah, lots of thoughts. So I'm gonna sort of knock out Simon Sinek and start with why. What's the outcome goal for an event? Is it a sustainability event? Is it a engagement piece? And that might help to inform what it looks like. So are we looking for engagement with new audiences? Because I think what we do see is that when we have sustainability events that are run by organisations, we do often see the same faces because they're people that are committed to it. Are we looking at convert specifically? Last year we were specifically trying to convert people from short car journeys onto bikes and walking or public transport, and discussions about that. Are we trying to raise awareness of sustainable transport, a sort of just more general awareness raising piece? Or are we looking for somewhere to exchange ideas and collaborate with other sustainable transport interested parties? And then going on from that, we need to think about what is achievable within the time frame. I think initially we said that June would be a good time. So for me, potentially that's going to be a stretch to run this alongside the proposed work on the website. If it's going to be a big event, if we're looking at the same but bigger and better than last year, I think potentially I could do copy and paste and do exactly the same thing again because we've now got all the contacts. However, I might question the value of doing exactly the same thing again, just only 1 year later. Some of in my head is also that committee memberships are changing potentially after the annual council meeting in May. So decisions that we'll make about anything that's upcoming now is going to be passed on to maybe different people, but maybe not. But just something to think about. We've got if it is sorry, lost my place in my list there. So potential options might be to defer to the same event to the autumn or summer 2025 and go bigger. Maybe expand the scope, maybe expand the theme into a more kind of be outdoors type thing, or more broad sustainable transport, have a walking festival as well as a cycle festival. Another option potentially, and I am slightly leaning into this one myself, but it's entirely up to you, is that there are so many festivals in the Home Valley already that have got a massive footfall. You could do a smaller roadshow at all of them. We've got the Garside unit in the middle of town, which is currently not let, and it's a perfect little pop-up for something at an event. But if we do that, what is it? What does it look like? What are the goals? So that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I like that you're all nodding, so good. So potentially, I mean, we know people involved with the Honey Show, which is also another thing that you could do this roadshow thing. And also, you know, what does that look like? If we do a roadshow of events at all the big events that are happening in the Home Valley, what is the goal? Are we going to do something ourselves as an engagement piece around sustainability? Are we going to commission something and get partners involved to run it?
I really love your idea of I won't use the word piggybacking, but capitalising on
Pop-ups.
Yeah.
on the festivals, and I think it's been you know, just raising awareness of how did we get to these, you know, if 2024 is it all the festivals, is it pop-up, which is something to do with us just getting people to talk about how they got to the festival and travel to the festival. That's a tangible thing, isn't it? We could find out what alternatives, because it almost ties in with the park and ride idea as well for the future. And I think if there was a space, whether it's Garside or wherever, you know, we can invite the community groups to sort of showcase and take on, you know, they could be invited to come and use that space to promote what they're doing, and I think it's a brilliant idea, and I think people would help you because it's fun and would want to get involved in.
And much easier than organising an entire festival ourselves.
Yeah.
So more manageable.
Would it be possible to showcase some solar power at these festivals? Considering we might, at this point, have something on a roof nearby. You know, the roof of the parish council is there, spent some money on it, and perhaps to do that for the same thing.
I'd anticipate there'd be one of our newsletters with it on the front page by that time.
If we go around that sort of, Gatside Buildings is next door anyway, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's part of the same
So
building,
you
so,
Obviously form part of the show and tell at the first.
yeah, I think that, this festival started in May, and there's no way we're gonna have panels on top by May. But by September, the food festival, maybe. So, but we've kind of got all the festivals and big events on the calendar in there, and they run from the beginning of May is kind of the first one, and then the food festival's the last one really in September, and stuff in June. We know people who are involved in the arts festival, I believe. Don't know.
June, yeah, June 15th.
Julia is obviously involved with the Holly Show, which is another option to take the little road show up there.
I have to say I very much like the idea of us piggybacking onto and having a presence at, and a repeating presence, if you like. So they're like, oh, they're there again, and it's, you know, that sort of thing. To do a standalone event in June, I think we're on a non-starter. To be honest.
It's going to be
Big
a
clashes
lot.
with other things.
Yeah.
And you've got a smaller footfall as well. You know, if you want to promote what the parish council are doing, what the climate action group is doing, you want lots of people there.
Yeah.
So to be a presence at all these, and in fact that's one of the grants that we gave out on Monday, was for the climate action group to have a stall at the food festival talking about promoting local food, you know, and reducing mileage for local food and things. So again, that's a really sensible use of food festival, isn't it? And that we only need money to, you know, so.
I think the idea of using the Holly Show
Yeah.
opportunity
As one of the
as a,
concepts, yeah.
Yeah.
you know, maybe we use that as the first test place.
I mean,
Would there be anything before then?
Yes, there would. The Arts Festival weekend is the middle of June, and the Folk Festival is the
Of course.
beginning of May. So, I mean, that is quite a quick turnaround.
Yeah. Both of which we give 1,500 a year to, so, yeah.
Alison.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, what is the message? You know, apart from, you know, what the parish council, I think if you have a little roadshow thing, would it be different depending on which audience you're
I mean, I think from a,
have you thought about?
I have, yeah, and I think from a kind of resourced my time management side of things, I think it would make sense to do one thing, do it well, and do it and repeat it, because that is sort of in terms of getting a message to the most people.
We can do that this year,
Yes.
and if we decide we want to do different things in different places next year, well,
So
we can do.
decide what the message
So
is.
yeah,
Yes,
see what I need from
absolutely.
you right now,
Yeah.
potentially right now, or as a smaller group while we work it out, is what.
I like Kim's idea about transport, because that is part of our council budget as well, looking at transport as well, so.
That would be a start to get stops.
Yeah, I
That's
think
right.
so.
Well, and get some feedback on, are people interested and would they use Park and Ride
Yeah.
or not?
Yeah.
Amen.
Well, it could be, I agree with the transport side, I think that generally carbon awareness, just sort of something that link with there, which is generally speaking, that is travel. It's where you get your food, which wastage, it's everything that, if you're mindful yourself about where that fits, you can make life adjustment, can if everybody makes an adjustment, and it's honestly, it's best.
Yeah, when you do the carbon can and you put in I travel by train or bus or I travel by car, whoa, yeah, it's the big one.
But we can have a main theme and we can have other information about other activities as well.
Things that are connected, sort of thing.
I would say you need a draw. As a draw, not like a draw that you put things in, like a draw. They come here.
People come here.
So it's not much fun chasing people to do surveys. You need something to get them to come to you. So whatever that might be as well.
I think that this needs a working party to sort of, to design and plan a roadshow. I do. It needs a group of people to get together.
Can I just say, what about get the bus or walk to the festival? Did you know loads of people don't know it's £2 to get on the bus? And our bus is off.
How do they?
I know how to run. Because they're not, they just don't think of themselves as bus. So if you bring your bus ticket, could there be some sort of a reward.
Reward.
Which is
A
fair on
raffle.
some reward, but it's just something to.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of did approve a reasonable budget for this last
We did.
time.
5,000, Peter.
Which,
Yeah.
you know, some of that might be buying space, if we let the go outside, you know, we're gonna have to buy space. Certainly at Honey Show, we would need to buy space. But prizes and merch and whatever else is doable within that.
Because the prize itself could be something sustainable. The paint pots have just remained, haven't they? They're just the reusable paint pots have just been brilliant. And I've always thought it'd be amazing to have a coffee cup, you know. But it could be the Home First coffee cup. Or water bottles, yeah.
I think there's just loads of possibilities,
Yeah.
aren't there?
Mm.
Would it be sensible to have
Yeah.
a look? I think it would indeed. So, who would like to be involved? Kim?
Yes, please.
Oh,
Right, I'm going to do mine.
Just be there.
I'll enjoy that.
anybody else?
You can do it.
Patricia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely.
Sorry, Jenny, were you in that as well?
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah. Go on.
I think that's enough, isn't it?
Your
Did you get this?
festival
Thank
experience.
get
you.
it.
Very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Grand. Holly show then. Pitch. We're going to have a pitch.
Well, this was,
This was
this is
the-
part B, isn't it?
Mhm.
So this has to be ready for that at least.
Yeah.
So I think the answer to that one is yes, we are. Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
A pitch at Holly show? Yep.
Yeah.
Lovely.
And it's, well, I've put in a budget line of, just for the purchase of,
You put 100 quid.
for that.
Yep.
From 465 just for the pitch, and we'll work out pitches at other festivals. I might not need that.
No.
It's good to have.
Mm.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
apropos of public transport, that one of the things that Leeds had mooted for their strategy for everyday lives was everyone should be 1 kilometre from a bus, accessible by a safe pedestrian footpath.
No, if only.
That's an ambition.
Very ambitious.
Just a bit. However, you start
That's the
with something,
thought.
don't you?
Kirby's on the move.
But that may be why the new Miller Homes has got a nice footpath leading to the new bus
Exactly.
stop. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they're making start. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was switched off. Clearly not. Right then. So, last but by no means least, items for publicity. Has anybody got any stories that they want sharing in printed press, website or Facebook? I will send something about me going to Home Village Winterfest,
Brilliant. What I am gonna,
which was lovely actually.
oh,
Oh.
I really want to talk to you, whoever it is.
Could be.
What I would say is that we will hit a period of election sensitivity fairly shortly. I can't remember the exact. So we are slightly more restricted than what we could put out, but I think I'll just be careful around that. It's usually that we're not name checking any particular councillors on anything. Can you remember when their dates start?
No.
It's sometime in March, late March, I think, and it's
Is it
6
6
weeks
weeks
before the Kirklees district one, and then whenever the general one is as well, you get 6 weeks before that. And there's a restriction on the content that you can put out as a public organisation. But it doesn't mean we can't put content out, it just means that we can't name anybody, I think, within that.
I was just thinking that publicity, it's things to do with the grants, but put that till this committee, is it really, to publicise that?
No, we do that.
It's obviously
No.
the big news, I would have thought.
I hope to have a bit of a grant case study in a lot of the e-newsletters that we put out as well, or at least in the run up to grant time. So maybe not everyone, but maybe the 2 or 3 before.
Yeah.
When we get that going.
Yeah, that's a news publicity thing, isn't it? Yeah. Okie dokie. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. That's been a lot of work, but I think we've got some real success out of that. And thank you very much indeed for all your input.
Thank you.
Toodaloo. So, shall we meet?
We'll meet tomorrow, next
Do
week.
you want to
Well, let's see. I mean, it'll be easier to, we need to put something in the town. Yeah. Well, no, actually, I mean,
What about,
tomorrow.
Yeah, so soon. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Can't do
Yeah, well, I'm a bit crazy about it tomorrow. You know, speaking how to
It's a good time.
the solicitor said that the playback can take 7 months. So I just sort of rush it.
somewhere. I'll get there as soon as I can.
It's quite nice. I couldn't really appreciate when she used the B instead, because it was affecting.
So that's tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, well, this week, no, I'm back there on Thursday, we've got the charity shop taking away like 50 bags.
Yeah, that's in front of you, for like 10.
But the week after, we want to do something.
They've mentioned at the time, because it's a new council, everybody's got a lot of ideas and put a lot of things forward.